Hello and welcome to MAC258 Module 5, Assessing the Creative presentation. Uh, we had talked a little bit about what it's like in the context of working within an agency. And another important aspect of that is how the creative, the ideas, are shared to the clients and the feedback given to the creatives. And some of the most successful relationships between creative and client, or basically from the writer, people who write, to the people who essentially pay for it, some of the most successful relationships are based on trust, mutual respect, and willingness to follow some very simple, succinct guidelines in order to help keep the conversation focused on the work and how it delivers on the creative brief. So what I'm going to show you here is something that I didn't invent, but I certainly appreciate, and I know it's been used to great success with various companies, including where I came across this at Procter & Gamble. And as maybe initially silly as it may appear, it's actually pretty effective, and it helps folks kind of remember and go through this assessment process in a way that is, again, both effective and clear and respectful to everybody involved, because that's when it just really becomes a great opportunity to talk about the creative and learn from it and make it as good as you possibly can. So, I want you to put your hand out here. There we go. Your hand, because this is going to be our device for remembering the best way to assess the creative. So when you're hearing somebody and you're being presented an idea, and when that person or that group of people are done, look at your hand and remember, you want to always start with giving them a big hand. And that means, in the vernacular here in the U.S., a big hand means congratulations, a thank you, applauding, so to speak, thanking them for the effort, because whether you like the work or not, a lot of people put a lot of effort into what was presented, and it's always good to acknowledge that effort. So the first thing is you look at the hand and you give them a big hand, okay? Once you've established that acknowledgement of the work, you put your hand, your full hand, and you place it on your stomach. And what that means is, here, again, this may be a little U.S.-centric, but that hand on the stomach, you check your gut. What is your gut reaction? And that means simply, what are your first initial thoughts that are as emotional as they are intellectual? You can be honest and be clear, but what is it that, in your essence, how do you feel about what was presented? Do you feel like it's something you, or perhaps the consumer you're trying to reach, would care about? So that's your gut reaction. Then go back and look at your hand one more time, and look at the palm of your hand. That palm, and always think of the palm of your hand, that center part of your hand. It's the foundation to the rest of your hand, right? So you look at the palm of your hand and you ask yourself, does the work presented build on the foundation of the brand benefit? So if the creative brief is of any good, is of any worth, then it's shared with you what the benefit of that brand is. And that is the foundation of why people choose or don't choose that brand. The palm represents the foundation of the work. Does that work support the benefit of the brand? All right, next up, you've got the palm of your hand. So what's the first finger, which technically is not a finger, it's the thumb. The thumb, you notice, is very different from other fingers on the hand. It is distinct, and that is something you want to ask about the work. Is the work distinct? Does it catch attention? Now, many young writers will write things that are technically correct or technically on strategy, but they're not distinct at all, and that's trouble because it just becomes just so much white noise. It just fades into the sea of other only adequate ideas. You want to work very hard to be creative and distinct in your approach, so it will stand out, so it will be a little different from all the other things that are out there. Like the thumb is different from all the rest of the fingers. Next up is the index finger, or the pointer finger, which is a good reminder to say, is this work specific? Or in other words, is it talking to a specific real person and or need? Is it focused enough? Is it pointed at a particular thing, or is it very general and generic? If it's very general and generic, that's an issue, because again, it falls to the wayside. It's not interesting. It's not talking to anybody in particular, or conversely, it's trying to talk to absolutely everybody and not making choices. And without choices, you get no results. The next finger is called the middle finger. Now, here in the U.S., it's a very rude gesture. But rude or not, you can at least say that it is very recognizable. It is something that people notice, and that's what you want your work to be, or the work to be. You want it to use recognizable assets. So if a brand is an established brand, you want to make sure that it uses the recognizable assets that are provided. If you're working for Coke, you want to make sure you use the red and the Coke logo and the Coke bottle shape, etc. Not all of us will work for Coke, but whatever the brand is, you want to use those recognizable assets to help increase resonance and memory of the work, because it's connected to other recognizable assets. Next is the ring finger. The ring finger is about connecting with consumers emotionally. A ring finger is where we put the ring when people get married. So does the work connect emotionally? Now, by this, I don't mean it has to be sad, but just some sort of emotional connection. It needs to work at not only the intellectual level, but again, that emotional level to have better and superior impact. So does the work connect emotionally? If it doesn't, keep at it. Keep looking for ways to connect with consumers. We are all human, and we all need those emotional connections, and sometimes your writing can help those connections to be a conduit for those good connections. And last but not least is the pinky. It's the smallest finger, and it is not very complicated, so that is the idea here. Are the ideas presented, are they simple and single-minded? The pinky doesn't do much, but it is very, very simple. And you want your work to be just as simple. The more complicated work gets, the less easy it is to engage. Now, there's a difference between keeping it simple and being simple-minded. I'm not saying being simple-minded. I'm not saying talk to the lowest common denominator. I'm not saying to keep it at a third grade level. I'm saying simple as in elegant, as in easy to understand. When you think of an Apple product, for example, as complicated and as advanced the technology is, the interface is almost always very elegant and simple. At least that is how they used to be, at least. Okay. And finally, just one more thing is when you're assessing creative, please don't tell the creative how to fix a problem. Simply tell them what worked and what didn't, and let them do the job of finding how to fix something. Again, in the Venn diagram, strategy is what, the creative is how. It is problem solving. So let the problem solvers solve the problem. So just a quick review. You give folks a hand, then you look at your palm. Does it build on the foundation? You ask if the work is distinctive. Is it connected and pointed to a real person or situation? Is it recognizable? Is there an emotional connection? And is it simple and single-minded? So there you go. There is a overview on assessing the creative. And I hope you find it helpful, and I hope you find it practical, not only in this class, but in your life to come. Thanks very much.